Good evening, everybody. It is Thursday, October the 11th. I am your host, Slacker Kite, and welcome to the Mr. Video Game Super Show live podcast brought to you by Dead Sun Entertainment. So many words, such little time. Bringing you an hour of video game and gaming related news every week on the week at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/Dead Sun Entertainment and of course with backups to YouTube/CBGP games.
Woo!
Hey.
With as always this week, the party starts with her. It's Joan, aka Lady Goggles. Yeah!
Hi, I'm Daisy.
You're the best, Daisy. It's always true. And if the party starts with Joan, it ends with Brian, aka Wonder Boy.
Because I burn it all down, soaked in whiskey. I don't know. That's how it goes in my head, at least. I don't know. Really, it's usually just like crippling social anxiety, and maybe just a tad bit of too many PBRs.
It's better than my parties, which usually ends up with me over in the corner petting somebody's dog that I don't know. How the dog gets there, I don't know, but I'm petting it.
I always play that game when I'm at parties. It's the pet the dog game. It's get something to drink, find some food, and then see how long it takes to A, find the dog, and then B, pet the dog. And that's essentially my evening.
See, the last time I had an experience like that, it was more so me getting stuck in a corner and accidentally knocking over the dog's food
by not going to parties.
super awkward. And then running out of the house in a panic attack. Hooray!
Yay!
Sorry.
Isn't social anxiety great?
It's lovely.
It's just the best. That's why we have the internet, because we don't have to look each other in the face to do this.
But you live with me and Josh.
The best. Anyway, we played Mario Party. We're speaking of parties.
Speaking of crippling social anxiety.
Yay! Wait.
Speaking of
Mario
things that make you hate other people, Mario Party.
Yeah, yep, pretty much.
Mario Party is a lot of fun. I really heckin' enjoyed it. We played some, we did a test run with me and Slacker Kite the other day, and then last night we played for, Josh's birthday. So it was, to me, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty cute.
I feel like, okay, I've never owned a Mario Party before, so I didn't really know what to experience, but it seemed like a good place to get into it now that, I have a house with people who want to do social games with each other and all that good stuff. Seemed like a good connection, but I don't know. It didn't feel as antagonistic as I was expecting. Like, I was expecting to be at each other's throats by the end of it. Instead, it's just kind of like, well, that was fun.
You got in on when they finally figured out how to make Mario Party less intense. Go back in time and play Mario Party 2 when it first launched, and tell me you would not want to beat up one of your siblings.
Even the first one, because I remember playing the first Mario Party on N64, and I had the N64 controller hand syndrome where there was like a dent in my palm trying to circle that fucking analog stick around. Yeah, you want to talk to me about old school Mario parties? Talk to me about one. But I mean, just for the fun factor, people complain oh, not that I'm saying you're saying this, Kite, but people are complaining oh, it's dumbed down, it's not as hard as it used to be. But I found it really enjoyable. This isn't a game that you gotta try to speed run. This is a game that you play with your friends, your family, whatever, and it's just a fun, doofy time.
Yeah, I mean, who's playing Mario Party for the difficulty? That's you're fucking doing it wrong if that's what you're doing it for. You're doing it because it's a thing for you to sit around and play and yell at each other. It's like D&D, but there's less chance of people killing each other at the end of it.
I'm not going to lie. I was the kid that played Mario Party solo when I was in middle school, high school. So I'm the person that you were talking about it sometimes, but also it doesn't matter if the game's hard or not. Yeah, the mini games seem a bit more I don't know. They didn't seem as frustrating as previously, because that's really where the difficulty comes from, is the frustration that they induce.
Mhm.
Bumper balls being the clear example of that syndrome. But I don't know, like, to me, I think they streamlined it definitely. It does lose a bit of its mystique whenever you take out the 50 turn mode.
Mm.
Personally, I think that's one of the main things that most people who have that Mario Party badge of honor point to when they talk about that franchise, is like just cranking up 50 turns, trying to like play through that marathon of bullshit,
Hmm.
and then getting screwed over because somebody got the happening star and that gives them the win.
Well, it's funny you say that. We got royally screwed. When, me and Travis were playing, it was against 2 CPU. Let's just say Luigi won without doing anything.
None of us could get to the star because of the way this one board was designed, and we played it on the lowest number of turns just, to give it a quick tryout.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had the AI set on the lowest possible difficulty, so it was rolling for shit, obviously, through the whole game. And then the winning star was given away, and it was for who rolled the lowest.
And it was Luigi.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
This game. But I mean, like, one of the interesting things that they did in the game, too, was before every minigame, there's a little practice round that everybody can engage in. So you're not just stuck, like, being thrown into the minigames like you always were with no fucking clue what you're doing if you've never played, like, this particular Mario Party before. That caused a lot of frustration among people. Like, the first time I played Mario Party, like, I had no fucking clue what I was doing. This one, it just totally takes that away. Like, everybody's on even ground, everybody practices until you're comfortable with it, and then here's the real run. So I don't know. Like, I mean, it just, from somebody who is not, like, a big veteran, who's played Mario Party, but, like, wouldn't call myself, like, the Mario Party queen or something. I mean, I think this is a nice, simplified version. It's cute, it gets to the point. It really encourages team play on all the other modes, except Mario Party, because, of course, you want to beat your friends or whatever. I thought it was very charming and very, very, very interesting. I liked it a lot.
Speaking of games you're playing, Joan, what's going on in the world of Fallout 76? So you've been having fun following that?
Yeah, I think we're putting a pin in some of the Fallout 76 conversation for a little later in the podcast. Yeah. But recently Bethesda did this whole media outlet thing where they invited, YouTubers and journalists and people who cover games and all that. They invited them down to the Greenbrier Hotel in West Virginia, where the game is taking place. So long story short, they got to play 3 hours of Fallout 76. It was an earlier build than the beta that's coming out later this month. And people were able to tweet about it. They threw them a party. They give them like an all expenses thing, like your flight and your meals and everything was covered, the hotel. It looked like a blast. And then the embargo for the footage was lifted on Monday. So pretty much all this week I've been watching various Fallout 76 footage from people like Juicehead and Oxhorn, who I've never heard of until recently, so I'm getting caught up now in Oxhorn's Fallout videos. There is a little bit of, not controversy, I would say, but there is some... I don't want to use the word nagging, but, like, people have been complaining, one, that it's online, which you're not going to get the Fallout experience you'd normally get online. I mean, that's just goes without saying. Like, it's an online experience. But then they're complaining about, like, the fact that there's no human NPCs. There's reasons for that. They're talking about how VATS is a little wonky, how just how crafting works, how this works, how that works, and it's like, we've only got a chance to see the footage that came out from these playtesters, and it was an early build. Like, we still haven't gotten access to the beta. And people are bitching about the beta because it's only going to be 4 to 6 hours every day until the game releases because they want to break it with as many people as possible. And now rumors coming out saying that Bethesda only invited people to the event who were positive to their series, which to me I think is total bullshit. Like, you should have some people there who are either on the fence or, sort of about the game to see, like, maybe we can change your mind.
Oh, that's just how Bethesda do, though.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
they always give out their games to the people who say nice things before launch to build hype. I mean, if you're expecting better out of Bethesda, then you're looking at the wrong company.
I guess so. Like, because I was thinking about it, and I'm like, I've been playing Fallout since I started streaming in January, and it's like, I love going back to the games, but I do have critique of them. They're not perfect titles. Even, even New Vegas, which is probably my favorite out of the modern Fallouts. Excuse me. But, it's everybody's, and then the PvP system people are complaining about, like, either they're not being able to PvP enough, or people who don't want to PvP like myself are going to get, targets for people, even though there's measures against that. Like, it's splitting people all across the place. Me personally, I'm looking forward to playing it. Like I said before, I've got it on pre-order. I'm at least going to play the beta when we get back from New York. And that's going to determine whether or not, like, we keep the game. Like, I'm super excited for some of the character creation from the perks, going through the lore of the game, since it's 25 years after the bombs fell. So, canonically, it's the earliest Fallout game that's been released.
Right on.
So I'm excited to see, like what happened in the world, so close to the bombs falling. But I can't speak for everybody else, and some people raise valid points, and some people are just bitching to bitch, which I just described the internet in a sentence. So, that's...
As someone that has frequented the Blizzard forums back when I played a whole lot of WoW, people who play multiplayer online games bitch a lot.
Yeah.
There's a reason why I refuse to touch. I've been playing a lot of Dragalia Lost on my phone, and I don't want to touch the forums because I don't want to know what people say about it. Because I know how whiny people get about these games where you're basically competing to see who has the biggest resource dip.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong, some of the complaints are valid. Because some of the complaints are like, well, what about the role playing? What about the story, the storyline? And right now we haven't seen too much of that. And to me, that's a valid complaint, because when I play Fallout, I create my character, I kind of put myself or character I have in mind in the story, and I try to make decisions like, okay, what would I do, in this case, or whatever. So that, to me, that's a valid complaint. But then some people are complaining like, oh, you can't kill people without a bounty. Like, yeah, because you'd be a murderer. And the game penalizes you heavily if you kill people who don't want to engage in PvP. So it's you're not going to be able to satisfy everything. That's just what it boils down to, I'm just hoping that the gestalt of the game is greater than the complaints that I have about certain pieces of it.
Entirely fair. So, coming up, we've got our first bit, our main story of the day. Microsoft's new Xbox Game Cloud, Project xCloud. It's a very interesting idea and experience. Basically, you're pairing up your Microsoft Xbox One controller with your phone, your tablet, whatever have you, in order to participate in this streaming service they're going to do, where basically they have blades and blades and blades of cloud storage set up where they have these Xboxes just set up and ready for you to play. This comes on the heels of the Google box that's been discussed before that does basically the same thing. So it seems like two big competitors coming into that same headspace. While Google has more of the back end to support that, certainly with larger infrastructure, Xbox is fucking Xbox. They already have developers. They already have product. Which they can put on this rather than having to have somebody develop something entirely new. Which also raises the question, will the next generation, will streaming be a major part of it? While Microsoft is saying that, of course, the home console is still your luxury car of video gaming, that this is another way for people to get into it that maybe can't afford a full Xbox experience. The same way they've also tried renting to own your own Xbox and things along those lines. Bring the plebs into the console.
You want to talk about complaining, just a quick tangent. The number of people who is sitting there complaining, oh, you want people on welfare to be able to afford an Xbox? And it's like, hey, poor people are allowed to be entertained. If this is the only way that they can afford to game, and gaming is one of their hobbies, fuck you. You know, like it's I hate to be kind of crass about it, but you know, give me a break.
You know,
No, be as
and it's
crass as you want to be.
it's
It's
super
fucking
cool
bullshit.
too, because even most poor people tend to have a phone, because most, especially most poor kids tend to have like a grandfather or an uncle that's like, oh, it sucks that little Jimmy isn't able to play the games too. Let's do something nice and get him something. Even if the family's poor, he'll have at least a phone, or maybe like 2 or 3 years after a console come out, get that. But this is a pretty easy pitch to do and get people their first setup onto gaming platforming, and bring it a little bit more to the people, let's say.
Yeah, and ultimately, what you're doing is introducing the hobby to a wider demographic that can really, I mean, for the most part, that can only help. Like the more
Mhm.
people that come in, the more fresh blood that comes in, the more diverse the demographic gets to be. The video that I'm showing on stream now, you see women playing it, older people playing it. Like these are the demographics that companies are trying to hit. Like how can we get more women playing games? How can we get people older than like our age to go ahead and play that's not like, quote unquote casual games, or, get them involved in the major AAA franchises. So this removes that big barrier of entry, which with consoles, it's the price. I mean, not everybody has $399 or whatever to drop on a console, and then games, and then accessories. Like it's an expensive fucking hobby. And if this is a way to mitigate some of that expense so that more people can experience it and then have that shared experience with their friends or family, I don't know. I kind of see it as a good thing.
No, I mean I
One of
completely agree. Like it's not just diversifying your audience; it's diversifying your offering, it's diversifying your portfolio. Like with them having basically layaway Xbox, you have of multiple different versions of Xbox. Them talking about Xbox Game Pass now with Xbox X Cloud, Project X Cloud. Like you have all these different ways, like pairing cross ownership with Xbox One and the Windows Store.
Mm.
Like they are creating more of an ecosystem to um, cultivate an audience that is much broader than any manufacturer and publisher is really trying to do. And it's honestly, it's probably the smartest thing that they can do, considering the foothold that Sony has right now in the console market. Um, and we've seen these things before, the cyclical nature of who gets to be on top during a certain generation. And while Xbox had that last time around, Sony clearly has fixed their problems and usurped them this go around. But this honestly is something that's probably going to be adopted more wide range within the industry than a lot of people are probably giving credit for. I mean, right now it just kind of sits as a novelty, I think, in a lot of people's minds. But this really is like the payoff on all of the chit chat that we've heard around the different gaming circles about streaming and the Netflix of video games, if you want to put it that
Yeah.
way. It's just the next logical step.
Yeah.
Mhm. Speaking of the next logical step, Sony, not to be outdone, basically announced in an interview with the Financial Times that the PlayStation 5 is indeed being worked on. This is one of those, nah, this isn't really news sorts of things, because, yeah, of course they're fucking working on a PlayStation 5. They're working on a 2021 sort of window, 2020, 2021, somewhere in that area. Um, and the question that everyone is having now, with the Nintendo Switch being portable, with Xbox looking to be potentially portable with streaming and whatnot, with the Google item being portable, will the PlayStation 5, especially with the recent death of the Vita, look into portability as well, since that seems to be the hot trend going on? Now, there's only speculation so far, but it seems to be that would be the most logical step for the PlayStation 5.
I don't disagree, but I feel like, if I can be blunt, Sony's gonna cock it up. Because their forays into the mobile market haven't been great.
I do remember the phone they put out. Lovely.
Well, just looking at the PSP and the the Vita, like it's clear that they're still not sure what they're doing. I mean, it would probably be in their best interest to do something mobile, but with all the tech that they're gonna put into the PS5, if the PS4 is any indication, I'm not sure how it would work unless they do something similar to Microsoft, where it's a streaming sort of situation. I don't know, and it's too early to speculate. The article that's been written here by Mike Snyder of USA Today, they're saying that Sony Interactive Entertainment CEO John Codera is hinting at 2021. So, we don't know what kind of tech is going to be available, next year, let alone in 3 years. So it's I'm sorry, go ahead. Brian?
The joys of live broadcasting.
Brian, can you hear me?
No, I can't. Now I can.
Okay.
Father, I don't know, you keep cutting out on my end. Sorry.
Huh, that's weird.
No, happened again. 1 second.
Jesus. Well,
but yeah, it's all very interesting. I think that now we're on the edge of a new console generation. And I feel like we have this conversation every time that we're on the edge of a new console generation. Didn't the old console generation just start? It's been like 5 years.
Yeah. Like,
I mean, it feels that way, but let's be real. Like, the console generations usually last between 5 to 8 years, and we are at 5 years.
Yeah,
like, there's always some overlap, but this is coming up on the usual timetable.
Now, admittedly, the next generation isn't really going to be a big change as far as graphics go, because we're starting to hit that point of Moore's Law where we're getting better stuff, but it's very small amounts of better stuff. So, it's a question of what else can you give me?
Yeah. Real quick, I want to go.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just real quick before my audio cut out. I was going to say back. Let's not forget, Sony already has a streaming service similar to Xbox Game Pass. So while they don't necessarily have the same infrastructure that Xbox is working on with xCloud, they do have PlayStation Now already in place. Granted, it does have plenty of hiccups, and Sony has not shown the same flexibility that Xbox has with trying to diversify its offerings and its ability to get games and systems into the hands of people. I think that's a product of their success this generation. I don't know if that's going to be the same approach they take going forward, and it might be a lesson that they have to learn sometime into the next generation, because the last time that they had such a high-selling system as the PS4 was the PS2, and they rested on those laurels when it came time to put the PS3 out, and we all saw how that crashed and burned.
Yeah,
so hopefully
they absolutely took advantage of what the PS2 offered, which it was the big library and the big enhancement of the tech at the time, and then PS3 came in and was just sort of coasted in, and it was like, I mean, it was. You're absolutely right. Like, I can't even phrase it any better as far as resting on its laurel. I hope with the PS5 they bring back At Home, because I'm still butthurt about that.
We didn't put it on the docket, but Sony is introducing the ability now to name change very slowly with beta clients, which is going to be very interesting to see how it actually works, because previous to now, that name was hard-coded. So some of your older games, still, even after all of the troubleshooting and beta testing, still might not work, if you have the old PS3 games with leaderboards and stuff.
And meanwhile, every other fucking platform can be like, oh, we could change this.
Yeah, so Sony's pretty good at that whole sitting on its laurels and, coasting until everything is potentially fucked. And people have been yelling because you can change your name on the Xbox. You can change your name on the Switch. You can definitely change your name at any time on Steam. So why is this such a problem?
Yeah. I mean, let's face it. Sony's the company that really, if Fortnite had not come along, they wouldn't have even implemented crossplay in any fashion.
No.
Like, they just have their nose turned up at certain things.
Mirage Leonardo in chat, hey dude, says that it still feels too soon for PS5. Honestly, I mean,
I completely agree.
Yeah,
by the way,
I think it should still give itself some time. I mean, PS4 seems to be doing pretty splendidly, especially with all of the fantastic games that came out this year. Like, holy shit, what a wide variety of fantastic games, from God of War right now down to the Spider-Mans. It's doing great. Like, I feel like they could get a couple of, at least 2 or 3 more good years out of it. But then again, according to the article, they're saying that's when the announcement might be made for PS5. So who knows?
Yeah. Let's also
we're
not
still
forget.
Got 3 years.
Yeah, they had 3 years, but let's also not forget we're only about a year plus into the lifespan of the PS4 Pro. Like, that's the main reason why I think that most people feel like this console generation is nowhere near its end, is because we've already seen both Sony and Xbox implement upgraded tech into their newish boxes. Like, we have PS4 Pro and Xbox One X. They're both supposed to be heightened boxes that play better with the technological advances in in TVs and everything. But if they introduce a completely new system in the next 2 to 3 years, and if I'm the person that bought a PS4 Pro and that's coming along the pipeline, I feel like I just wasted about $450.
Yeah. Well, Mirage, we're talking about the PS4 Pro, not the PS4 console. Like, I see what you're saying though, because he's saying that it's only been out for 5 years since 2013. But even then,
yeah,
like it's still it's coming out too soon. But I think we've sort of said everything we had to say on this. Do we want to move on to our next topic?
Yeah, absolutely. Coming up, sort of a follow-up to a story we've been following a whole lot. Wow, I got everything a little bit out of order on my screen. There we go. So, we have Skybound is finally finishing the work on the last Walking Dead season, as Telltale Games shuttered in a dramatic fashion, and they're hoping to bring on some of the original developers from The Walking Dead, if they can get them back.
What a mess. What a complete fucking mess this has been. Skybound, for those of you who don't know, it's the media company owned by Robert Kirkman, who is the creator of The Walking Dead. They were like, hey, we don't want to see Clementine's story just end. So Kirkman turned around, and I'm reading directly from the IGN article here. We've successfully negotiated with Telltale Games for our company Skybound to come in and see Season 4 of the Telltale game to completion. So according to the article, the company has completely taken ownership of The Walking Dead. We'll finish it. We'll work with members of the original Telltale team to, quote, finish the story in a way that the fans deserve. Now, presumably this means they're going to pay them, which would be fantastic. And I'm not trying to be sarcastic here, but the way that these people were laid off just suddenly is complete bullshit. I wouldn't blame these developers and these team members for not doing this, given the way that Telltale fucked them over. That being said, I mean, Skybound seems to be doing pretty well, all things considered. And if they're able to bring this back, that would be fantastic. At the same time, Telltale as a whole really needs to get with the story, because we've been covering this since it happened. Like last week we talked about the lawsuit that that a former employee, class action lawsuits trying to file. I want to know what happens with Clem, but not at the expense of these people not getting their severance pay and not being able to at least eke out something of a living until they can find new work. So this alleviates some of that, but it still doesn't take away how utterly furious I am that they treated their employees the way they did.
Yeah, at this point, if they were to, Mirage is mentioning Wolf Amongst Us Season 2. If they were to somehow pull that out of their ass, I would still be like, I don't know, man. Do we really want this?
Well, I mean, like, you know what, too? Like, I would love to see a Wolf Among Us Season 2. When that announcement was made, I was like, yes, this is gonna be great! So I don't know. Like, it's... I mean, they'd have to sell off the rights to the property to somebody else who can handle it. And, you know, what would be a good company for it? Possibly Dontnod, because they're the only other big company I can think of that does this sort of, for lack of a better phrase, walking simulator type games. Could they handle it? I don't know. You know, like, who would pick up the rights for these games? But I mean, the fans are definitely pissed, and I totally understand that because I'm a big fan myself, or I was. But I would much rather see the employees get fully compensated for their time and effort than see this. But that all being said, I'm very interested to see what Skybound does. And I guess we'll just see what happens with Telltale as the story continues to develop. I say as I pretend to be a journalist.
I mean, honestly, that's all we can do.
Yeah.
Like, the lawsuits going forward, they still, like, they laid off most of the skeleton crew that was still there. I think they're down to really just a few people, and really, I don't know how long that's going to last. I think really getting this off of the books and into the hands of someone that would give them money might be the last thing that they were going to do as a company.
Yeah.
That being said, yes, I would be very happy if, you know, Skybound, if they were able to get original developers back onto this thing, I would be very happy if they paid them. The problem is they're coming back to work on something that is super temporary. It is nothing. The nothing they work on with The Walking Dead is going to secure them a long-term position with Skybound, because Skybound is not in the business of video games in the same way that Telltale was. These people, I really don't expect many of them to do this, because they are out looking for permanent jobs where they don't have to worry about being out on their ass in the next 3 months again because their contract work was done. Because more than likely it would be a contract work they would come in for, which means no benefits, no severance whenever they do eventually leave. All the things they're trying to fight Telltale to get in the lawsuit.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm gonna be completely honest. I love The Walking Dead season 1, season 2 and 3, blah, whatever. This whole situation with Telltale has put such a stench on the Walking Dead series. I don't know if a lot of fans really would feel good about getting that game in their hands even now, based off of like the stigma that surrounds it.
Whereas me, an intellectual, already bought the game and was going to play it when all 4 episodes were released. So, I mean, I was going to ask for a refund, but now that Skybound is going to finish it, it's like, well, I may as well just hold on to it because, you know, I don't know what's going to happen.
And I mean, I don't blame you at all for that. I mean, I would be excited about it too. It had promise. It's the end of Clementine's story. You want to see that, especially if you played through season 2 and 3 all the way and got through those slogs to see the end of this thing. I have no issue. I take no issue with anyone who still wants to play the game. Personally, for me, I would not touch this thing with a 10-foot pole just because of the stench that is on.
Oh, no, and I absolutely do not blame you. Like I said, I purchased it before all the layoffs and stuff happening. I just purchased it because, like, oh, you know, I got my Twitch payout. I'm going to go ahead and use some of that to get a new game that we can all enjoy.
Investing in your brand, let's say.
Yeah.
You know, it's God, it's frustrating. You know, I just hope that at least for the time being, the people that they're hiring on will get, you know, properly compensated for their time. And who knows, maybe if the last 2, what's up, Josh? Maybe if the last 2 episodes are really well done, maybe they'll have a little video game division where they hire some of the Telltale people back. You know, we don't know. I don't know. It's unlikely, but you don't know. I'm just gonna stay non-optimistic.
I'm just going to beat that old same drum of video game development is a fucking farce because people keep getting into 2-year contracts. This is normal in the industry and it's fucked, yeah.
Yeah, we really need to talk about unionization in the brands and the companies that we support, because the way that video game development staff, from QA testers all the way up to the top art directors and stuff, they get absolutely shit on. And a lot of these people lose out on benefits. A lot of these people lose out on perks. A lot of these people lose out on life-work balance, all because the majority of them have passion for the industry. They have passion for the games they're making, passion for the people that they're working with, and they're getting taken advantage of. And I think that's a fucking... It's inhumane. Like, we all have passion for video games, but, like, I can't justify an 80-hour work week for anything. Like, I love streaming. I can't do 80 hours streaming a week. Like, that's insane.
Yeah.
And it's the same way with any tech thing, especially the act of creating games. I mean, fuck, look, I mean, that's we just described crunch, you know? So, foul taste.
Yep.
Speaking of foul taste, how about the hate speech game that we just got?
Yeah, from some guy named Brian Bell from Game Revolution. Who's this guy?
I don't know. He seems
I have
pretty
no
cool.
idea. He seems like a doucher.
Nah, I hear good things about the boy. He seems alright.
Maybe. We'll see. I'll hold my judgment.
So you wanna talk about this one?
Yeah, I can go through this. So, this game called I believe it is called Bolsomito 2K18 was released on Steam back on October 5th. Now that might sound benign, but that date is incredibly close timing to the highly contentious Brazilian elections that have been going on, where the government has been so embroiled in corruption that the majority of the populace of Brazil has apparently decided to throw their backing behind this super alt-right dickhole named Jair Bolsonaro. Yeah, Bolsonaro. Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting so upset at this dude. This dude is pissing me off so much. So anyway, they're getting behind this dude. He's described as the Brazilian Donald Trump.
Let's put it this way: like, he makes Donald Trump look like a nice guy. If you've watched Last Week Tonight, they did a little talking point on this guy, and he's a dick.
Oh yeah, no, the Last Week Tonight piece is outstanding to look at. Vox has had a really good piece on him too. I would go look up on their website. But basically, this dude is really terrible. Advocates violence against homosexuals and marginalized communities. Has really been shitty towards the indigenous populations in Brazil, and he got 46% of the vote in the first round of Brazilian elections on Sunday. So yeah. Anyway, so this game, Bolsomito, basically is a depiction of Bolsonaro within a video game where you are charged with killing homosexuals, protesters, feminists, and people of color in very violent fashion in order to earn points and to stop. And this is a quote from how they describe the game on Steam, to quote, stop those that intend to establish a criminal ideological dictatorship in the country.
Now, Jim Sterling put up a video on this, and it's still available on the Steam store, at least as of the last time I checked.
It is. It still is available for sale. It's on sale, actually, 10% off if you want to pick it up and really kill your soul.
Yeah, and watching the gameplay of it, I mean, the background art is nice, but the gameplay is shit. You basically walk right and keep hitting the kick button, and the enemies have nothing they can do about it. So it's generic shit, flash game that somehow ended up on Steam because Steam has dropped all barriers to anything. And despite the fact that there's a lawsuit going on here, Steam hasn't taken it down yet.
Yeah, so the major crux of this thing and why it made national news is because the Brazilian government announced yesterday that they are opening an investigation into the developers, BS Studios, saying that the game that they made has a clear intention to harm candidates for the presidency of the Republic and thereby embarrass the 2018 elections. Not the hate speech within it, not the promotion of alt-right rhetoric that is incredibly volatile.
But it's embarrassing.
Yeah, but it could defame the Brazilian presidential election because it hasn't already been defamed enough by having this dude at the head of it.
And it should be noted that this election is pretty contentious. For those of you who don't know, Brazil has elections in 2 rounds. If whatever candidate doesn't get the majority of votes in the first part of the election, they have a second part of the election to go from there. And right now, the person who this game favors is, like Brian was saying earlier, extremely far left.
Far right.
Or far right, excuse me. Extremely far right. He wants to go back to the old way of Brazil. Now, I'm not a Brazilian citizen, so if I speak with some ignorance, forgive me. But very into the mindset of this is a ideological dictatorship that we have to go back to. We need to restore law and order, and people are responding to that. And other people, such as, feminists and marginalized folks, are going, we don't want this. We're trying to increase civil rights. We're trying to be better than what we were. And it's extremely, extremely contentious right now. As a matter of fact, the person who's against this guy is getting shit because he's affiliated with somebody, who's the former president, I believe, who's now in jail. So because he's had some affiliation with him, people are using that to, don't vote for this guy because he's affiliated with this guy who's thrown in jail for corruption, blah, blah, blah. So it's a hotbed of situation right now down in Brazil, and whoever if this guy wins this election, it's going to be pretty affecting, not just in Brazil, but I think across parts of the world when they see somebody with this extreme alt-right rhetoric being elected into power. It's kind of frightening. Cynical Streamer says, I feel this is not the encouragement of Baiano, but more as a mockery of how ridiculous it is. See, I don't know. It's a little too on the nose for...
Let me say, as far as the Steam description of it, the in-game description, if it's attempting to make a mockery of the guy, then it's doing a very piss-poor job. It's doing the old sometime, if you were saying that that's the point, then this is what law was one of the internet laws that sometimes it's hard to distinguish being a troll with being the actual thing.
What, Poe's law?
Yeah, Poe's law. There we go. It's way too Poe's law if that's the case. But from all looks, and especially looking at the developer of this, it doesn't seem like it. It seems that these developers are very much for this man, Bolsonaro.
Yeah. If the developers aren't, the people that are reviewing the game are. Right now, it has a very positive score in the user reviews. And most of the user reviews basically just consist of some people, either people saying it's great SJW triggering bullshit, or they are spouting pro-Bolsonaro rhetoric. So even if the developers made this game to be a satire of Bolsonaro, all they're doing is giving his supporters a pulpit to preach their rhetoric on a site like Steam. That's really all they've accomplished. That they were trying to make some giant anti-Bolsonaro political statement. Now, the Brazilian government, they have requested that Valve stop selling the game, which obviously Valve has not stopped doing that yet. They've also requested that Valve turn over the BS Studios registration data to them to aid in the investigation. Which, honestly, the little bit of digging that I did into BS Studios turns up what seems like, and this is just a full-on speculation. I don't know this for sure, but I would not be surprised if this was just some college kid, amateur game maker who made this based off of the studio's Twitter account and his association with another developer who has a page on itch.io named Dave Microwave Games, whose games almost exclusively consist of trolly horror games with co-opted licensed cartoon characters in them, such as Dora is Dead or Nightmare on Sesame Street. I'm not kidding you.
The ultimate takeaway is Steam, do fucking something about your store, for the love of God. You're hosting shit.
Real quick, chat. John Borg. Hey, John Borg, what's going on, dude? Says, I hope Valve does not bend the knee to foreign governments. Cynical Streamer says, well, that's just shit posting trolls in the reviews. Like, you're telling me all Bad Rats reviews are legit. Well, here's the thing. Like, you know, people make alt accounts and they'll do that shit in, like, YouTube comments or whatever. But, like, at a certain point, you have to go, all right, how many of these are people just taking the piss? You know, like, some of these have to be legit. I don't know. And as far as what John Berg is saying, I mean, I feel like they... Oh, man. I'm put in a real awkward spot because, like, when Digital Homicide, for example, wanted to get the names of the people who left bad reviews so they can sue them, Valve was like, fuck you. And then they took all their games off. I'm in this weird position where I feel like they shouldn't give the names of these people over, but at the same time, how do we reprimand these people? I don't know. I don't
feel like just take the fucking thing off the store. Yeah. I don't give a fuck about reprimanding the people for doing this. Steam already has made it very obvious they don't want troll games on there, and even taking away anything else about anything else in this, it's a fucking troll game. This doesn't need to be on Steam. This is just more shit on the fire. The gameplay is bad. It is not good for anybody. It is literally just here to make people butthurt, and that's really about it. Let's move on to happier topics, shall we? Let's take a breather from all of this. Move on to GameSpot's article from Steve Watts. So, from what we understand, Fallout 76 is going to dramatically change the lore of the Fallout universe. Now, I'm going to tell you, I don't know jack shit or dick about Fallout. I've watched Hollis play Fallout 3, Fallout 4, Fallout New Vegas. I've put my toes into Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 and been like, oh, this is gross, I don't like it. Joan, you tell us some things about Fallout 76.
Well, here's... Okay, so earlier on, when we were talking about Fallout, and we were talking about some of the issues, some of the complaints, which again, I don't know if I'd call these nitpicking, because we're talking about very dedicated fans of a series who have been keeping up with the lore since Fallout 1, right? And Fallout, to its credit, has a ton of lore, a ton of stuff, to the point where Chris Avellone, one of the former game developers, put together this thing called the Fallout Bible, which captured stuff from Fallout 1, Fallout 2, and answered minutia, things like that. So, for example, one of the things that people are questioning are things like caps. A very, very short TLDR. Caps were used as currency on the West Coast because each cap was backed, like, by a bottle of water. And it was instituted by the Hub, and the Hub, you know, came about and was around during the events of Fallout 1. That's a very, very TLDR of it, but that's for all intents and purposes, that's why caps are used as currency. So because this game 76 takes place 25 years after the bombs fell, the Hub wasn't established, caps were still not really being used as currency yet, so the question is like, well, how are there caps, why are caps using currency, you know, especially on the East Coast when... You know, like, the capital wasteland was still, like, not really there yet, this and that. So people are asking questions like that. People are asking why about the Brotherhood of Steel, because the Brotherhood of Steel wasn't a thing when the bomb, you know, especially so close to after the bombs fell. And again, they were established on the West Coast. So it's little, it's, I don't want to say it's little, because to people, this is a big deal. For me, I'm like, it doesn't bother me that much, because I feel like, you know, caps are something that, like, it's just an easy currency to have. It's used in the rest of the games. You know, we can go ahead and just go ahead and progress with that. But at the same time, I mean, I don't see the issue with changing some of the lore. Like, these are, like, the proto-Brotherhood of Steel. Maybe this was the Brotherhood of Steel on the East Coast, which is drastically different from the West Coast. And they were still in the fledgling stage, and something happened. Like, because there's no human NPCs in 76. So it's not like you're going to come across these people. You'll come across stories, which is my big hope. But, you know, I'm sure all of this will be explained in-game. So to further go on from what the article is saying, Pete Hines, which is one of the big marketing people for Bethesda, and he works on the Elder Scrolls and things like that. And right now, of course, his big thing is 76. The issue is that because the game canonically takes place so early in the series, people are wondering, like, is that going to conflict with everything that we know about the rest of the game from, Fallout 1 through 4? And he's turning around, he's saying, like, look, we take lore and canon seriously. We're willing to say that, like, hey, we can change this, we can do all this stuff. He goes on to say, quote, "There's no question that we've gone back to change things to fit what developers wanted to do and not be beholden to something that somebody wrote 20 years ago, even in the franchises we created like the Elder Scrolls," which is sort of an interesting statement. Because again, a lot of the Fallout fans, we're talking are the old school Fallout fans. They started with 1 when it came out, when it was still Interplay, and it's very near and dear to them. So for them to turn around and say that, well, we don't want to be beholden to something somebody written 20 years ago, that's kind of a slap in the face to a lot of fans. Like, well, what the fuck? A lot of us are here for the lore, for the background. But then he goes on to say, we don't take it lightly and just go, we're just going to do whatever the hell we want. There has to be thought process. What's the rationale? So he goes on to say, why would this work logically in this time? Why are there super mutants? Why is there the Brotherhood of Steel? And he says that the game has all these answers. So, and the thing, like, I can't make a judgment call until I play the game, until I see what the lore says and doesn't say. I am one of those people who, if I've read the Fallout Bible, I couldn't get through Fallout 1 and 2 just because, like, going back to those games after playing the modern Fallouts, like, I just can't handle it. So I've watched, like, Let's Plays and stuff about it. But, like, I've gone through all of the games in some way, shape, or form. And I'm really big on the lore, like, having the bombs fall, who did it first, how the people survived, looking into the vaults, the currency, different factions. Like, this is all interesting shit to me, because I like role-playing. But until I see how the game approaches things like, why are there super mutants on the East Coast, so close to West Virginia, again, 25 years after the fall? Why the Brotherhood of Steel there? Why are we still using caps? Blah, 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 blah. I can't make a judgment call. I can't make a judgment until I see it.
I like the ideas that they presented, that maybe, all of this shit you've been told, maybe people have been fucking lying to you this whole time, right? Maybe, maybe all of these stories about how the Brotherhood formed, maybe that was bullshit, and the Brotherhood formed a completely different.
Yeah, and I see that Josh is saying the same thing. Oh no, maybe the legends were wrong and lost in time. Fixed your issue, Bethesda. Yeah, I mean, maybe. Like, it's hard to keep track of history when all you have are predominantly oral retellings of what happened over the 200 years. Who knows? Like, it's. But again, I think it's interesting if they totally come up with bullshit reasons, and I'd be like, all right, it's whatever reason. But I can't judge until I play it, and I'm not going to be able to play it until we get back from New York. So I'm kind of just in the air until November.
As a fan of Zelda, fuck with my lore. Just bend it over, do what you want with it. I am fine with doing whatever if it makes for more interesting gameplay and storytelling.
That's the thing, though.
Yeah.
Can you guarantee that them fucking with your lore makes that lore better, though?
That's the thing.
That's my main concern, is that, let's put it this way. Bethesda hasn't necessarily been the example of rave reviews on how they've handled some of their some of the Fallout lore that they have created themselves in 3 and 4. I'm not counting New Vegas because that was an Obsidian joint.
Yeah.
But like, they've taken some heavy criticism for the things that they've added to the Fallout universe.
Well,
so,
and to add to that, just real quick, it's telling too that Bethesda totally changed the role-playing aspects of it, because again, this is an RPG, it's supposed to be. They took out the skills from Fallout 3 and Vegas. They took out the extra options that people react to based on what your special perk and your numbers are. They're really dumbing down the role-playing aspect of it, to the point where in 4 you couldn't even create your own character background unless you had an alternate start role-playing mod. So they're turning it more into an action-y game or an action-y RPG than anything else, which I feel is a really bad step for the people like me who like the roleplay aspect, who like the character customizations, who like those little bits and pieces that not only made your character stand out, but add a lot of humanity and charm to the universe as a whole. So that's the big thing that pisses me off about 76. The fact that it's still relying on perks, it's still taking away the skill system. Like, that to me is super shitty. And I can understand being pissed with that change because I too am pissed with that change.
Yeah. It's just a matter of seeing if the good outweighs the bad. That's all it really is. And no one will really know until we get our hands on it. So
True.
The more and more I hear about this game, the less and less like cynical I'm feeling about it, and the more and more intrigued I am. And I'm just getting pushed just a little bit further towards dropping the $60 for it.
I'm still on the I will watch Joan play it and see if she enjoys it, and if she does, maybe I'll give it a go after that. But I'm not going to be a off the bat buyer of this myself. But I wasn't going to be from the beginning unless they made something really groundbreaking.
Yeah, and to be fair, I normally do not pre-order games. I think the last time I pre-ordered a game, it was for Pokemon Sun and Moon, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that, and that was what, 2 years ago. So like I'm normally not a fan of pre-order culture, but I'm excited to give this a try, and I'm excited to see what happens. And Josh, to your point, I'm talking about like mostly Fallout 4 in that respect, as far as NPCs and dialogue and things like that. Skills would make PvP unfair. See, I don't think so. I think that if you had skills, you'd be able to really customize your character a bit. Like, you have somebody who's more spec'd in guns or more spec'd in repair, especially since they brought conditions back. Like, you'd be able to really fine-tune the type of character that you want. Like, for me, I'm going to play a doctor, so maybe I can get that medicine skill so I can be a more effective medic, you know what I mean? So, like, I don't think that would make it unfair. I think it would just offer better options for characterization. But long story short, TLDR, I'm interested. I'm not interested in fighting ticks, because that's super gross. But I'm looking forward to playing the beta and seeing what happens with the beta. If I enjoy the beta, probably going to keep the pre-order and then go from there and then see what happens. Lore-wise, like I said, I just can't speak to it until I start coming across those lore bits in the game. It's hard for me to make an opinion on it right now.
I will say this, hearing news that the Mothman is in the thing, that he is a worshipped god among the Scorchers, that pushes me a little bit further towards buying this thing.
Yeah.
Moving on to a article from PC Games via Sam Desitoff. So Red Dead Redemption is clearly coming around the corner, and it's posing to be the next big bomb drop from Rockstar. It's only being shadowed by COD at this point. It's going to be one of the biggest things of the year. So the question on everyone's mind is, what are they going to do next? Well, if casting calls are anything to go by, it looks like it's going to be Bully 2. Now, Bully is kind of a game that came out to not a whole lot of love at the time, but is one of those major sleeper hits of Rockstar games. People who like this game love this game.
Yeah, it is a critical darling if there ever was one.
Yeah, it's one of the best reviewed games that Rockstar has ever put out. I never really got into it. By the time I got around to trying it was years after, and by this time, everything felt a little dated and clunky. So I can definitely understand why people have the love that they have for Bully. It's just not my bag, just because I didn't really get in at the time, and original Xbox games didn't age that greatly. But if we are seeing anything by the casting briefs, it sounds a lot like a Bully 2. We have job postings for things like voices for a college professor and a sophisticated college student. Items along those lines. So clearly it's taking place at a college, which would only make sense for the boy from Bully to go on to college.
Yeah. The one thing in this casting call that really points to something different than Bully is that they are looking for young performers to come in as well. And I mean, the original Bully came out in 2006, so if they were going to continue the story of the main character from that game, whose name escapes me at the moment, like the voice actor for that kid is clearly at an age where I don't think he would fit for a college-age person. So it kind of points to a different protagonist in some ways. It could be completely. I could be completely pulling that out of my. That could be completely wrong, but it just kind of casts a little bit of doubt on that. That doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to be Bully 2. It just means that they could be going in a bit of a different direction, telling a different story with Bully 2.
That wouldn't amaze me really with Rockstar. Most of their games, they tend to, rather than go for episodic in nature, it's something usually entirely different. Outside of obviously the Red Dead series is fairly episodic in the ways that its story tells, but other games that put out not so much. So it'd be fairly normal for them to put out a game that has the same name and tone, but maybe not the same characters, or maybe has some callback or cross-reference to the original Bully, items along those lines. And Josh, I have to entirely agree. Give me a Warriors remaster. I will kiss everyone who makes that happen. Please.
Square on the lips.
I'd be into it.
All right, we want to move on to the next bit here about the OWs.
Yeah, Brian, why don't you introduce this guy? Or no? Yeah,
sorry.
No worries.
Okay, here we go. All right, sorry, I got audio got cut and I couldn't understand exactly what was going on, but now I figured it out because I looked at the lineup like a professional. All right, so I know that I don't know how into esports you two are, but the Overwatch League, before I lose the entire audience by bringing up the Overwatch League, really kind of skyrocketed itself to the forefront of esports, at least in pop culture. And the first season went off without a hitch, outside of some definite hiccups with player vetting and conduct issues, as well as the issue of player burnout and overtraining. You know, a lot of the same issues we see with crunch in video game development happened with training. I mean, the famous story was the Shanghai Dragons went winless throughout the first season, while they were constantly talking about training regimens that were on average 6 days a week for 8 to 12 hours a day. So that's too much time to be playing Overwatch in a 1 week span. And because of that and other mitigating issues, the Overwatch League has announced that they are changing up the format of their schedule for the second season next year. Partially due to those issues of burnout, partially because they want to free up members of the respective teams in the Overwatch League to more promotional and video-based content around the league. Because each team kind of does their own like video series with their players and coaches, and then also because there are new Overwatch League teams. I mean, that news is not new, but the official listing came out this week from the Overwatch League themselves. 8 new teams joined the previous 12, including, and I know this will excite you, Travis, one from Atlanta. Atlanta's in the Overwatch League now.
Okay, so we have an Overwatch team, but we couldn't keep the Thrashers.
Do not get me started on that. I will burn down everything with telekinesis. Because do not get the Thrashers near and dear to my heart. No, but so you have 8 additional teams, so that brings the total to 20. So each division has 10 teams now. Because of that, they're cutting back the schedule. Each team, instead of playing 40 games in the first season, now will play 28 games over the course of 4 5-week stages, where no team will play more than 2 games a week, and every team will get a set number of bye weeks so that they have more time to rest and recuperate as well as a chance to plan out better scheduled training regimens, so that you're not getting these like 80 to 100-hour weeks for these 20 to 25-year-olds. That being said, they've also extended the playoff brackets to 8 teams now, where the final 2 teams will be determined in a sudden death tournament between the 7th placed teams through the 12th placed teams overall at the end of the season. And they have moved the All-Star game from the end of the season to the middle of the season, much like many traditional sports leagues do. They've also extended, I'm dropping just a whole bunch of info here. They also dropped extended the stage finals to, I believe, 8 teams. So you'll have an 8-team bracket at the end of each stage to determine who gets that extra bump in prize money for winning a stage. And I think that might be everything that they announced. Yeah, that's pretty much everything. They still, and of course, they still have their broadcast deal with Twitch. They've also got a new broadcast deal with Disney, ABC, and ESPN. So a lot of the scheduling with broadcasting has not been released yet. That news will probably come out ahead of the new season when it starts up on February 14th of 2019.
I can definitely agree along the lines of it's a very nice thing that they're doing, giving them bye weeks, giving them more time to be people. Doing 80-hour weeks while you're on it leaves no time to be a person. It also doesn't allow you time to cultivate, because esports is definitely a very short time period. I mean, even compared to regular sports, and in basketball, you usually get like 6 to 8 years. You're maybe getting 2 to 3 years in esports for most people. So this is your time to cultivate your brand during that time. So having a little bit of free time to do things that aren't Overwatch is probably a nice idea. That being said, it is still a sport, and we're talking about the best of the best. Clearly, they're going to spend the vast majority of their time, regardless, playing Overwatch. It's just what you do when you're making, tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars per year for playing a video game. It's just how it goes. But these are changes that the league needed to make.
Oh, definitely. They definitely did. And I will be frank, it does not address every issue with the Overwatch League. It addresses some of the key ones that were very forward-facing, but it does not address like contract situations, because a lot of the players, they don't have control over their own Twitch streams. Whenever they sign their OWL contracts, they lose control over their rights on video. Basically, they can put them in any kind of video situation they want to, and the team has final say over what stays in that content and what doesn't. So in a lot of ways, some of these players are signing over their lives in many ways whenever they join the OWL. And I know there was some scuttlebutt about possibly trying to form a union for Overwatch League players at the end of the first season. I haven't seen an update on that movement as of yet. Hopefully there will be some legwork done on that end.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And esports is definitely something that's still new it's not new, but especially for it being the pop culture thing that it started to become in the last few years, and especially with the payouts and the amount of time and dedication that players have to dedicate to being an esports professional. I remember back in the day, people would make fun of the idea of being a professional gamer. Joan, what was that web series we used to follow?
Pure Ownage.
Yeah, it was a fucking joke back then. But now you can be a professional gamer and spend all of your days doing this. This is real talk.
Yep.
Josh Jr., we do still make fun of it on a level, absolutely.
I mean, yeah, there's definitely elements of it that you can make fun of, but it is serious business now.
I know New York has a team, the Excelsiors.
The Excelsior, yes.
And that's about all I know about the Overwatch League. It seems it's a thing, but I don't know anything about this. That's why I've been quiet. I don't fucking watch esports. I don't watch sports.
See, I have to contextualize it through sports myself because that's my end of the whole deal. Go Dogs, sick 'em. But
I mean, basically, that's what Overwatch League is trying to do. They're really the first league to try and like take on that city-based model that a lot of traditional sports have. Because I mean, every other esport is just basically like Optic or Echo Fox. You know, these like names of companies that sponsor individual players. Not like this was the first time that they've done this. That's why, like, honestly, like I thought the whole city-based thing for Overwatch League was a little bit of a joke at first because all of the games are played in Burbank. Like, there's no like, yeah, this team is from London, but no one's going to London to play the London Spitfire. You know, like hell, the players for the teams they barely got to visit the cities that they represent in this league during the first season. Another reason why they're spacing out the stages so much to give players a chance to go to the cities that they represent so that the fan bases there can become more resonant with the players playing for their team. I think that eventually you will see multiple stadiums. I don't know if you'll see a stadium in every city that has a team, especially considering that there are now 3 teams in China alone. So I don't know. It's an interesting concept, and slowly I'm starting to get that feeling now that there's a team in Atlanta. Like I thought I was laughing at it at first, and now like, oh, there's a team in Atlanta. Oh shit, they're Hawks red, like their colors are red and black. Like
yeah.
Boy, you're pulling me in. You're preying on my sports mentalities that have been bred in me since I was 3 years old. I'm succumbing.
You're talking my language here, getting that red and black.
They haven't announced the team name yet. We'll wait and see on that. But anyway.
What?
Yeah. Sorry, Phil.
I
nerd out there a little bit, esports wise.
I have no clue what's going on. I gotta be real. The only reason why I even know the name of the team is because I logged on to Overwatch one day just to play as Mercy like for a bit, and it was like, hey, pick your favorite team, and I'm like, is there a New York team? Okay, click, and that was.
You lucked out. The Excelsior, really good.
That's what I hear.
Yeah.
All right.
Shall we start winding down with our?
Yeah, that about does it for Mr. Video Game Super Show for Thursday, October the 11th. However, as always, we end the show with the Mr. Video Game of the Week. It is the person who has, for better or worse, brought us something that really just speaks to the gaming community as itself. And this week's Mr. Video Game is...
Philfish.
Woo! Good night, everybody! It is two. It is William Burke. He is a indie game developer and artist that makes the stuff of your nightmares. And I've been addicted to his art since I found it out. He has been making these little jokey joke horror comics about a spider monster Garfield that haunts John with his demands for lasagna.
It's like fucking Kafka.
It's weird and gross, and I love it. And you can also demo the game that he is working on, Welcome Home, for free. And it looks spoopy, as you know, your standard spoopy top-down RPG maker looking games tend to be. But hi, it is a indie video game that could use love, and how better to advertise your spoopy game than making Garfield shitposts?
Was that a reptilian baseball fury that I just saw?
Maybe.
He's also made some Isaac-related content, which makes me happy.
Now I see how he got on your radar.
No, the Garfield was what got him on my radar. The Beetlejuice references and the Isaac references is what kept him there.
I see. Nice. No, this looks rad. I knowing that he's a developer and that I can demo his stuff. Like I am looking forward to that because I don't really have anything horror wise lined up, video game wise, so far in October. So this might be
It's good for Spooktober.
Do like getting spoopy.
It's pretty spoop. I do like it. It's really good art too. Like he has this one piece. I need to go find it again that I was just looking at. Where he's got this brilliant cross hatching and hatching going on, and the really nice use of shading around the skull and everything. Like it's really fucking good.
We also considered this for our Mr. Video Games of the Week, but ultimately went with this. But we want to give a shout out to Ninja Theory, who is opening up a scholarship, the Sinua Scholarship, for training of mental health tutors at Recovery College East.
Yeah, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean Ninja Theory, of course, the developers of Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. Ever since they released that game, or even started developing that game, they've really been diving headfirst into advocacy and trying to shed light on mental health overall as something that needs to be seriously looked at, researched, and treated. And I think that this is just a continuing effort on their behalf. And I'm really glad to see that they are continuing that effort even after Hellblade's release, like over a year ago now. You know, it really speaks to the character of them, and now knowing that they have the backing of Microsoft behind them because they were purchased by them, I can't wait to see what else they produce. If they have this kind of mindset towards development, I really want to see what their next product will be. If it'll have
Ninja Theory, they just make pretty good games. DMC was, I guess, all right, but
vastly underrated. That's what that was.
Yeah, I mean, and Heavenly Sword was pretty good too. So yeah,
I can't speak to a lot of those titles. Yeah, I can't speak to a lot of those titles, but I can speak to the mental health aspect. I think it's fantastic that more and more people in the larger gaming community, whether it be streamers, developers, journalists, whomever, are recognizing that mental health is a thing that we need to work on and need to address, and we need to like battle that stigma against, because there's still so many people that are like, you know, I don't want to get help, I can't get help, I'm crazy, I'm this, I'm that, and they ostracize themselves because they feel like they're the only one who deals with these issues. So the fact that more and more people in the larger community are going, hey, it's okay not to be okay. This happens to a lot more people than you think. You can get help. You can get people who can relate. There's support groups. There's this, there's that. And now that this is funding training for mental health tutors, like I think that's just fucking fantastic. You know, whether or not, because I've seen some people like be really cynical about it and be like, oh, they're just doing it for World Health Day and they're trying it like to White Knight. And it's like, dude, fuck off. Like, this is a good thing that they're doing. Having more people who can professionally talk to others about mental health is a good thing. Like, there's literally no negative to this. It's getting more people out there who can be properly trained and then properly help others who are in these situations. Like, I don't see the downside in this. I think it's wonderful work that they're doing, and I just think it's really great.
But that does wrap us up for tonight. Remember to follow us here at Dead Sun, twitch.tv/Dead Sun Entertainment, and of course, our backup vlogs go to the CBGP Games video YouTube space. That covers us for today.
Hooray!
Joan, you got any final words for the podcast?
I'm still hoping that Bethesda will introduce Followers of the Apocalypse merchandise, but I'm not holding my breath.
Brian, final words?
Go watch Black Lightning. Also read my things, but watch Black Lightning more. That show is rad.
And from me, go dogs, sick 'em, woof woof. Good night, everybody, and have a pleasant tomorrow.
Bye,
Beat
guys.
them Bengals.
Thank you for dropping in.